All right. We are back and we're live. Uh, so, first things first, Zach's not with me today. We took a 3-day hiatus here. Well, 2 days. And kind of trying to get it worked out with Zach and his work schedule. Had some things come up, which is completely okay. But I want to start off by saying this. We are now on Rumble. Again, it's just real conservative talk. And go follow us on YouTube as well, Real Conservative Talk, because if we do ever get kicked off of Facebook, I would like to make sure you guys know where you can find us still. Now, the next thing I wanted to start with is Juicy Smouye. So, Juicy Smouye, as we know, just was found guilty for faking a hate crime yesterday. And if you guys haven't seen Dave Chappelle's special last year about his, I'm not going to play, but you need to go and watch it. It's absolutely hilarious. But I need to make it clear, I had a Facebook post, a statement about Jussie Smollett, and I'll read it for the people on Podbeam that hadn't seen it. It says, as a conservative talk show, we would like to come out and say that we feel so sorry for Jussie Smollett. No human should ever have to be subject to racism and violently attacked by anybody. Unfortunately, we may never know what fueled the hateful motive of his attackers, but there's one thing that we can be 100% sure of. A firearm would have given him the ability to neutralize the threat and save the world from another violent racist. Now, guys, it's a joke. And it went right over people's heads. Right over people's heads. All right, the first thing I thought of when I started seeing memes about, Jussie Smollett, finally got to face his attackers in court. Joke, because he's the one in court, right? The first thing I thought of was, well, if only he protected himself like Kyle Rittenhouse did. So, look, it's a joke. I'm not implying that he should have shot himself. No, I'm not implying. It's strictly just implying the fact that obviously he's a racist. He tried to fake a hate crime, and he's paying the price. And if he was attacked, well, if he had a gun, he could have saved him. He wouldn't have been attacked then. So the whole statement, as much of a joke as it is actually kind of true as well. But I was reading some tweets from some of the politicians on the left. Kamala Harris was the big one. What's up, Sly Dog? How you doing? Again, it's open. The call-ins are open today. Feel free to call in. I don't have a co-host, so feel free to call in and join the discussion. Juicy wanted more fame. He got it, and he'll pay for it. Yeah, he's going to pay about 15 years for it, I believe. They are hammering him on the sentence, and all the charges, I believe, they're going to have him serve consecutively, which if I'm not a legal person, I've never been to jail, but I believe that means he has to serve all of them on top of each other. So if, each charge was 3 years, he got 4 or 5 charges, that's 15 years. That's not fun. And, it could have just been avoided. He did not have to do that. And unfortunately, it kind of takes away from when there actually is a hate crime that occurred and a victim of a hate crime. I don't know what the statistics on hate crimes are. I don't know how often they occur. Do they? Yeah. There's no denying that there's racism in America. And it goes both ways. But if someone is subject to a hate crime, it's people like Jussie Smollett that use it not just even for a political reason. He did it for money to begin with and then turned it into a political reason. He was mad he wasn't getting paid enough money. It's kind of like, that stereotype, like with rappers, they want to get shot because it gives them the street cred, right? What's that? There's a movie or a show, and it's this rapper, and it's about, they're like joking around about getting shot, so he shoots him in the ass. Let's see. Jesse's Hollywood career is over. He'll be like a certain Kathy Griffin, on the D list, talking about how he used to be famous and shot his career to hell in a handbasket. Eric, thank you for actually saying that, because you just reminded me of something else I wanted to make fun of. Did you guys see Hillary Clinton's speech? Hillary Clinton, I don't, she was in some interview the other day, and she is reading what her would-be victory speech would be if she would have beaten Trump in the election and became president. Not only was it just a pitiful sorry speech, I mean, you would imagine that the first woman president of the United States would have had a fantastic speech, right? Written, or someone professional to write it for. This is terrible. But then she started crying. And I would put a bet on the majority of my money saying that she probably wrote that speech a few weeks after she fucking lost the election. And she's just reading it off for publicity reasons. Talk about Trump derangement syndrome. Hillary Clinton has it the worst. She is permanently scarred. Camel toes Jussie Smollett tweet. Yes, so I was going to talk about that too, Eric. And Kamala Harris. Now, I don't know if you're talking about a recent one. I haven't seen a recent one. I'm talking about when all this stuff first happened. Kamala Harris referred to the Jussie Smollett situation as a modern-day lynching. Now, I don't know if you guys saw a picture of the noose. It looked like, when you go to the store and you buy rope, how it's kind of wrapped up? It looks like they bought a lot of rope and they didn't even unwrap it all. They just took the end of it out, tied a loop, put it around his neck, and then had the whole thing still packaged up like they just bought it. So there wasn't a lot of thought that went into this whole scheme. It could have been done better. It could have been done a lot better. One, how about you only call the people that you're trying to scheme with instead of fucking texting them? Two, throw away the receipts. Like, first rule to being a criminal, don't leave a freaking trail behind. Well, yeah, that's the other thing. So, it was like minus 15 degrees in Chicago in the wintertime. It's 2 a.m. And all of a sudden, two conservative white guys, Trump supporter, MAGA hat wearing guys in downtown Chicago are just walking around at 2 a.m. wearing MAGA hats, minus 15 degrees. Said, oh, that's Jussie Smollett. Let's go beat him up. And tie 100-foot worth of rope around his neck. So that's smart. But he didn't throw away the receipts. What's up, Shannon? He didn't throw away the receipts. He had text messages on his phone to these two guys. There's just a lot. If you're gonna do it right, and don't, like, you could have done 15 different things differently and probably gotten away with it. The other thing is they did it in front of a camera. Someone pointed this. I can't remember who else it did, but they had it on camera, and then he goes out of camera view for a second, and then he comes back in with the rope around his neck and stuff, and he's still holding the Subway sandwich. And then in an interview after this, when he's trying to convince everyone that he didn't lie about it. He's basically wanting to say, or this is what he said in the interview, was, I just want some small gay boy to look at me and say, I fought back. And know that I fought back against this. I'm like, well, you obviously didn't fight very hard. You had the Subway sandwich in your hand the whole time. You can't fight off 2 MAGA attackers with one hand. Unless you're winning, which you said you didn't, because you said you got your ass whooped and they tied a rope around your neck. So you got to try. The other thing, if you had a firearm, you could have protected yourself. I'm just saying. So if we make light about this stupid situation, let's make it to where we can advocate for carrying guns for self-defense. Guys, carry. Stay strapped. Because you don't ever know when you could be going to Subway in Chicago at 2 a.m. and have to defend yourself from yourself. Stay strapped, guys. Stay strapped. Jared Fogle called and he wants a Subway endorsement deal back. So, that's probably why Juicy Smollett went to Subway. Probably friends with him. But the whole situation is just, it's beyond me. It really is beyond me. Again, like I said, it takes away from people that are truly attacked and a victim of racial violence. If you're going to have a movement and you're going to try and have change and you want to be a part of this movement, like Jussie Smollett claimed to be, the worst fucking thing you can do is fake it. Because you literally take all of the credibility away from that movement.
I found this on the web.
Now Siri's telling me something. But you literally take all the credibility out of that movement. What's up, guys that are just joining? A few new people. So Jussie Smollett did more for gun advocates than he did for his own movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, in my opinion. Because now I can make an argument that you gotta stay strapped. The next thing I want to talk about is tomorrow at 11 o'clock, I'm going to have someone on that has a book on critical race theory coming out on Amazon. I don't know the title of the book. Will be on. He's going to be on the podcast tomorrow interviewing him. But the book's coming out December 31st on Amazon. We'll have those details for you tomorrow. Should be a good interview. Seems like a pretty smart guy. And critical race theory is something that we've talked about a few times on the show that I've kind of stayed broad on. I know a little bit about it, but he seems like someone that knows a lot more than me, so make sure you tune in and watch that. And I bring that up because critical race theory derives from communism, and we're going to get into this whole Russia deal. Now, if you've been paying attention, Russia is looking, or they're not looking to, they are taking measures that seem, trying to think of a way to word this. There's a lot of tensions right now brewing in Russia and Ukraine. The reason why I'm struggling to word it is because this shit has been going on for a while. This is nothing new. So just saying growing tensions and you know, things like that, like they're already at war. They've been at war. They've had ceasefires and whatnot, but this is an ongoing thing. But I'm starting to have a problem with how both sides of our leadership in D.C., Republicans and Democrats, are handling this. If you listen to the show before, when we talked about war, I have a perspective that we should not stop funding our defense department at all. I think we spend a great amount of money on our defense, as we should. We should strive to continue to be the most powerful country in the world and the most badass country in the world. Right now, we are in a position where we have a president that is trying to be liked by all the countries instead of feared. And what that's done is it's taken away both. Because now we've lost respect and likability, and we're definitely not feared. The title of today's episode was, or the theme was, how our society in the United States right now is going to be the reason why there's going to be a war in Europe and a war in Asia. It's going to be the fault of our culture in the United States. And people will ask, well, why would the culture in the United States have anything to do with what Russia and China do? While I just said that Russia and Ukraine have been skirmishing it out for however long since the end of the Soviet Union, now you have China that's building up, becoming more powerful, and they are now pushing this Taiwan deal. It is to the advantage of China and Russia to take advantage of Joe Biden at this particular moment. It is in their best interest because of what happened in Afghanistan and the way that whole scenario went down and how we pulled out. It made us look weak. It also made us look like we weren't willing to fight anymore, which I'm not arguing the fact that we shouldn't have been in Afghanistan. I'm fine with pulling out of Afghanistan. I was not fine with the way we pulled out. Not only was it a big fuck up, but it made us look weak. Extremely weak. Now you have two countries that are rivals that are going to take advantage of that, and they're going to push and push and push and see how far they can go with it. And John, you're right. I hope they don't attack either. But here's my other thought on this. Why would we waste our time and resources on Ukraine? Now, this is just my perspective. I know not everyone's going to agree with this. And I don't know what the policy is between us and Ukraine. But here's what I do know. What is our interest in Ukraine? I think the biggest interest is it's a buffer between Russia and Europe. And that's the way the United States sees it. There's also some natural resources there. The problem is the natural resources that are there that Russia is a lot of the reason why Russia is pushing Ukraine like they are. We have a president whose agenda is contradicting those natural resources. They're trying to move away from oil and natural gas. So why are we worried about Ukraine? Afghanistan was an unwinnable war to begin with. China said something about, you want to fuck something up? Biden is the man for that job. Yeah, you're right. But why would... Tucker Carlson made a good point with Tulsi Gabbard. And one thing I will listen to Tulsi Gabbard on is her foreign policy. I think she has good foreign policy. But why would we waste any of our time worrying about Ukraine? Why would we ever step foot in that war? Why do we have a Republican congressman, I believe senator, saying that we're going to attack Russia if they invade Ukraine? Fuck Ukraine. And I don't mean it in a derogatory manner, really, but we need to worry about ourselves. This is the one thing I always go back to with Trump that just shows me right off the bat that he had America's interests in mind was his talk about our NATO spending. We spend double in a percentage more than what every other country a part of NATO does. Double. So it's not that we're not even paying a fair share. It's not that we're paying more dollars because we are a bigger country and we're paying the same percentage. No, we're paying double the percentage. So we're paying like 10 times or 20 times the fair share as far as the dollar amount is concerned. I think Germany pays 1.5% roughly. Norway pays 1.5%. All the countries are about, the average is about 1.5%. We're over 3% of the NATO spending. How about we drop the NATO spending down to what everyone else is paying? It would save us, I believe, $400 billion a year. I talked about this on the last episode. $400 billion a year is what it would save us. You could do a lot here in the United States with $400 billion. Or you could just build our military up and, you know, put a little bit more of that towards our own military, taking care of our veterans. Let's make these other countries be a little more vested. I'm tired of us worrying about, you know, I just don't see why any politician would ever suggest that we should go to war over Ukraine. Kiev wanted to join Russia versus remaining tied with Ukraine. Sorry, I'm just going back and reading some of these comments now. Afghanistan, I don't know if it's an unwinnable war because Russia has won in Ukraine before. Afghanistan definitely was an unwinnable war because no one in the history has ever taken over Afghanistan. They've all been run out of there. But Russia is an unwinnable war if you look at that, because I think no one has been successful taking Russia over either. The Germans were close, but they got frozen. But if Joe Biden decides that he's going to send troops over to Ukraine, or any congressperson that supports a war with Russia over Ukraine, because you got to understand, if we go to war with Russia, you have to understand what that comes with and the risk that comes with. Would it automatically scale up to a nuclear war? I don't know, but it could. So why would we waste and take that risk on Ukraine? But the problem is that Russia's going to push and push and push, just like China's going to push and push and push over Taiwan. Because they saw what happened in Afghanistan. They see that Joe Biden is more concerned with these bullshit Build Back Better bills and taxing Elon Musk than he is, you know, standing up to anyone. And they had a video of Biden in the, I believe it was the Situation Room, and he's about to get on a telecall with Putin. And they have a video from Putin's end, and they have a video from Biden's end. Biden's like struggling to put his earpieces in and all that stuff, and Putin is kind of just looking down and almost has like a smirk on his face, like, I can't believe this fucking guy. We're not respected. We're not feared, which we should be. It was a terrible Zoom call. It's exactly what it was. I'm assuming you saw the same thing then, John? That same video I saw? It was terrible. You want to be feared. The United States should be feared around the world. I don't know if that's a popular opinion. That's my opinion, though. And we should stop messing with we shouldn't care about the world. We should care about ourselves. I've always been under the opinion that we should always build our military. Always. We should have the most badass military in the world. We need to maintain that. But we should kind of have the approach of, we're not going to, you know, meddle in your guys' stuff you got going on around the world. But the one time that you step on us, it's over with. What's up, John?
I was just going to say about that Putin meeting with Biden, you're right on, man. Putin looked like he was just tolerating Biden and disgusted with this idiot who's just a weakling, in his eyes. Putin, of course, has that Russian look about him all the time anyway, but I'm telling you what,
Yeah, it was like
he was just putting up with Biden's idiocy.
yeah, it was like I'm trying to think about how to describe it for the people that may not have seen it. But did you guys, okay, who else has seen the Kyle Rittenhouse video when Gage Groschwitz fell out of his chair? And Rittenhouse and his attorney were watching the video and they were laughing at it. The same look that Rittenhouse's attorney had when Gage Groschwitz fell out of his chair, where he had his hand over his mouth and he's kind of smirking at him, They didn't want to, he wanted to kind of maintain professionalism, is exactly the same expression that Putin had on his face when Biden was just trying to get headphones in. And Eric says, if Ukraine and Afghanistan became failed states, they become failed states. They've got to experience failure. Failure can be a marvelous thing. Failure is a part of life. It's a learning process. I agree. Now, Eric, the problem with that statement, though, is Afghanistan and Ukraine have been failed states throughout their history. They haven't changed. Now, with Afghanistan and Ukraine, really, you can make the argument that they've always had people wanting to invade them. I've never understood the Afghanistan deal, why everyone wants to go through there and take Afghanistan over. I know they have resources and all that stuff, but it's the Himalayan mountains for one. I don't know. I never understood that. But Ukraine, they have natural resources, so I kind of get that deal. And when the Soviet Union was around, I understood that obviously Ukraine was a part of the Soviet Union, but it would have still acted like a buffer between Russia and Europe. This whole situation in Europe goes back to the turn of the century, before World War I. And World War I really ignited a lot of this, and nothing has really changed over there. Some power has shifted. It's gone out of Germany's hands. It has, shifted over towards Russia more. But this stuff has been going on. I don't see why we, as the United States, need to concern ourselves with Ukraine. We're done with Afghanistan. Let's move on. But the problem now, though, we're going to run into is we have to assert some kind of power or strength. We have to show people that we are willing to kick some ass. Because if we don't, they're just going to keep stepping and crossing boundaries, and it's going to get bad. You're going to see China start to push harder on Taiwan, and you're going to see Russia push harder on Ukraine. Because right now is their opportunity to do so. Because if Trump was in office, they weren't going to do that. And they wouldn't think twice about doing it. And you're right, Eric, as far as the drug trade and the world's largest producer poppies, which in the United States, that's a whole other issue with opiates. But right now in the United States, we have a society that is worried about whether or not they have a penis and what to call themselves every day, while Russia and China are getting ready for war. We have a society right now that makes it okay to has allowed oppression to become a commodity. I got a caller in. And what's up, Dane? Oh, Dane called in, but he's muted. But we have a society that has allowed oppression to become a commodity instead of focusing on how we can make the country better and stronger. What's up, Dane?
Hey, Mike. What's going on, man?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'll take
no-
it back. See, I'll just let you.
No, you're good. Go
let
ahead.
you roll.
No, I finished my thought. Go ahead. You got any thoughts or something you want to say?
No, I just thought I would call in and maybe catch up with you. You
Yeah.
continue, and I'll jump in on the next thing. My
Yeah.
bad.
No, absolutely. It's an open discussion today because my co-host in here. So,
Oh boy.
yeah, just on a roll. But there's just a lot going on that I just don't think we should get involved with. But the problem is we may have to get involved because we may have to, again, assert some kind of power. Because we have a view, people view us now as weak. John Gale goes, he, her, they, them, pets. I don't know what FAER is in Z. There's like 127 different adjectives now. Or pronouns, whatever the hell that is. Did you guys see the swimmer at, I think it was the University of Pennsylvania? That was a man and is now competing as a woman and has been blowing
No.
away records. And this is a topic you guys are going to get me in trouble with because when we go down this road, we go down this road. And there's no going back. First of all, I believe this swimmer competed at college as a man too. Then had this transition. And is now blowing away women's sports. Any feminist that is okay with a man transitioning to be a woman and competing as a woman, there's a word I just don't want to use to describe. Because how are you okay with that? How are you okay? You want to bitch and complain about how women's sports is taking a bad seat and how the WNBA should be paid more and blah, 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 blah. But then you want to absolutely destroy those sports by allowing men to go in and compete in them. And all of that stuff going on goes back to my whole Russia conversation now, because we are worried about shit like that. We're worried about whether or not a man should be allowed to compete in women's sports and whether or not they should a man can go use a women's bathroom, and whether or not this professor has to abide by some policy that makes you ask every student what their frickin' pronoun is every day. Meanwhile, we have Russia and China getting ready for war. I don't know if you guys have seen the college football documentary. It was the one that came out last year or the year before, the 150 years of college football. It's a very good documentary, and it talks about the reason why football was created. And football was created to keep fighting age men aggressive and tough during peacetime. If you break down the game of football, it's played on a gridiron. It was a running game when it came out, and it was literally about, kind of emulated what a war would be, and that's gaining territory and fighting. It's a violent game. We have softened the rules in football, and this is coming from someone who played at a high level of football, but we have softened the game of football. We have implemented rules to keep people from getting hurt, which I'm not saying I'm against. I am some of them, though. But we have completely pussified the United States. And to be more specific, we have pussified the males in the United States and the white men, to be even more specific. But the whole culture and kids in the United States, we have pussified them. We have made it okay to sit around and be fat. We have made it okay to, oh, you don't have to go to school today, or, kids will be kids. And it's showing. It's showing because now we have politicians that are a part of this culture. Politicians like AOC and all them. Then you have politicians that are older Joe Biden was not always like the way he is, but they're all about that political game. And so they're going to, feed the fire on all this bullshit that's going on right now. And this is coming from someone, myself, who is a young male. And I've grown up in this culture that has just become soft. I was watching Saving Private Ryan the other day, and you're looking at what those guys went through. And now you have people that are saying, we're the fucking oppressors for going over there and invading them. Like, it's a big difference, a big drop off in the culture in the United States as opposed to other countries. As great and as powerful as we are, and as innovative as we are, as much as we have to offer the world, we're not living up to our potential. Sorry, I'm not reading comments, guys. There's a lot of comments are coming in now, on both sides, Facebook and Podbean. But Sarah Renee, you're right on Facebook. Bring back pride and masculinity. It's when I first heard the term mansplaining. First of all, what the fuck does that even mean? And second of all, who cares? What, a man just has to walk behind a woman? A man just has to... I'm not saying something is right or wrong. I'm just saying, why are you focused on it? What is wrong with me opening the door for a woman? What is wrong with me paying the bills for a woman? I grew up in the South. I say yes sir and no sir. Yes ma'am, no ma'am. You have certain societal norms that have gone away. And it's showing. Like, we are so focused on... trying to think of the word. We're so focused on catering to 0.05% of our population. And we don't want to have conversations about bigger problems. We want to have the solutions, but we don't. But we want to implement solutions to problems that can be solved before they even start. We want to solve problems after problems happen, but we want to let the problems happen first so we can solve them instead of just preventing the problem in the first place. And the best example of that is our health in the United States. I went on this rant the other day. Some of you heard it, some of you didn't. But I am a strong believer that there's no fucking way that we will ever have free health care or Medicare for all in the United States. Not because the Republicans won't do it or the left won't take the time to implement it or whatever. Simply because we will not be able to afford it. And nothing in life is free, Eric, you're right. But I'm just saying, we could not afford Medicare for all. First of all, we can barely afford Social Security and Medicare as it is. Everything we do, the whole debt ceiling and taxes and all that shit, the majority of that is going to pay for the worst fucking policy that has ever been implemented in the United States. That's Social Security. And it keeps getting more and more expensive. So to even consider the Medicare for all deal, you would have to get rid of Social Security. But we could not afford Medicare for all. Why? Because we already spend 18% of our GDP on social spending or on healthcare spending. For those of you that don't know, I said it the other day, Norway pays about 25%. 25% of Norway's GDP is about $90 billion. We spend 4.5 times that amount more in NATO spending than every other country. We literally spend the equivalent to Norway's total GDP more in a percentage-wise than any other country for NATO spending. If we just paid the same percentage as what NATO, or the same percentage as every other country that in NATO did, we would save the equivalent to Norway's total GDP every year. We could fucking buy Norway every year over and over again with the amount of money that we save by just paying the same amount proportionately as every other country in NATO. That's fucking ridiculous, and that's why Trump was hitting on that. The other thing is, going back to the Medicare deal, we're too fat. We pay 18% of our GDP towards healthcare spending. The majority of the healthcare costs that we spend on is towards obesity-related issues. Well, that's something that can be fixed. Norway's population, I think it was like 4% were obese or something like that. In the United States, 49% roughly, I believe, was the number. It's close to 50%. Don't quote me. I have the statistics somewhere. It's like 40-some% of the population is overweight. That's crazy. The leading cause of death in the United States is heart disease. And cancer and diabetes were in the top 4. Main causes of cancer, a lot of them could be fixed or dwindled down by better diet and exercise. Heart disease, the majority of those cases would have been solved by diet and exercise. I have. Eating healthy is cheaper. It's so actually, Glenn B. I have actually tried this experiment. So Glenn B on Podbean, he says, "Have you tried eating healthy? It's cheaper to feed a family on fast food than it is to feed them a healthy meal. Maybe it's the food cost that's the problem." Actually, no, Glenn B. So earlier this year, I made it a goal of mine to sit down and eat healthy. And I work a lot. You know, I drive a lot. I was eating a lot of fast food, but I exercise every day. I run every day. I saved way more money going to the store and buying healthy food and cooking it every night than I did eating fast food. You can buy chicken very cheap. You can buy frozen vegetables, which are very healthy. A bag of frozen vegetables, $1. That gives you 3 or 4 servings. You could feed a family. You could feed a family of 5 for $1.50, $2 worth of vegetables. That's assuming more than 12% of the family can cook off a store or a stove. The vegetables you microwave, you're right. So you're talking about, can they cook off a stove? I would say the majority of people have access to cook.
12%. Dang, that's low.
I would imagine it's a lot lower than 12% of the population doesn't have access to cook somehow. People can't cook. People can't cook well. That doesn't mean they can't cook for themselves. That's no excuse. It's no excuse. As someone who literally changed my ways of eating, and Sarah Renee says you don't always have to cook either. Fresh fruits, raw veggies are perfectly fine. Yes, Sarah Renee, you're right. The other thing too, let's take diet out of it then, Glenn B. People's excuse not to okay. He said so. You went from a skinny guy to a skinny guy. That's beyond the point, though. That's not the point is that you can eat healthy and it can be cheaper. But the other thing is let's take the diet out of it. Okay, let's say you're going to eat fast food. Exercising for 30 minutes a day will still completely change the makeup of the U.S. population. And the problem with people is they say, "Oh, I don't have time to exercise." Bullshit. Everyone has 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes. Go on a walk. Everyone has 30 minutes a day. Everyone has 30 minutes a day. That will drastically change the health in this country. Why don't we incentivize exercising? Why don't we have tax deductions? You want to give tax credits to people? How about, Joe Biden, why don't you give a tax credit to everyone every year in the amount of the $150 to go purchase a pair of running shoes. But you have to show proof that you did it. It has to be a pair of running shoes or some kind of athletic footwear. Will that just automatically mean that people are going to go exercise? No, but I guarantee you it's going to incentivize more people to do so. Again, you can't force anyone to do anything, but you can put things in place that will incentivize someone. Why don't you let us have a tax deduction for running shoes and workout clothes? You let me write off my suits and tie for business. Why can't I tax deduct the clothes I'm going to go work out in every day to maintain health? Which will in turn, me being healthy, will help the healthcare system because it's lowering the cost of my healthcare. The other thing is, why not offer tax credits to parents that are signing their kids up for a sport? You know, let's say it costs $100 to go sign your kid up for a football team, for his equipment and everything. Let's give them a tax credit for that. Let's encourage kids to be active. The one thing I couldn't stand, and some of you have been on the show and heard me talk about this stuff, and Sarah and Nate, you're right. They don't want to lower healthcare. We'll get into reasons why here in a second, but when I was in college, they made me take a fucking theater class. Theater. I'm an economics major. They made me take theater. What the fuck did theater do for me? I got a D in it, by the way. It was an online class and I got a D because I didn't care. But they make you take theater. In high school and in middle school and everything like that, they make you take art class. I'm sorry, but I don't know anyone that has gotten better at art by taking an art class in high school or middle school or elementary school. Usually the people that are pretty artistic and have a love for it and stuff like that, wouldn't they get better on their own time?
Yeah, for sure. There's more there's more resources at school though, you know.
I get it. Look,
That's probably.
and I'm not saying not having it as an elective, but to force someone to take it, to make it mandatory, like, oh, you got to do this, right? No, PE should be mandatory. And I'm not talking about PE where you just get dressed up and go, walk around the track and talk to your friends. No, I'm talking about fucking PE where you go out and we're running a mile twice a week and you got to make it in a certain time. And the other days we're playing like basketball or whatever, and you have to participate. The one thing good about Australia, and for those of you that don't know, I have pretty close ties to Australia, but their PE class, so like being a physical education teacher in Australia is actually a very big deal because it's more than just, watching people play sports. Like they have an actual like health class behind it. If you go to Australia, there's not a lot of fat people. They're very, very, very active people. It's a whole different mindset when it comes to just the general population that you're around. They're out camping, they're outdoors, they're out, going to the beach, they're outside, they're walking places. And it's a whole different mindset, but it should be forced for every kid up until his senior year to take an hour PE a day. That's just my opinion. And if you go to college, then you should have to take so many hours of physical education or some sort of class because you're going to force them to take fucking art and theater and all the other bullshit to get into your major. You might as well force them to take PE.
Oh, for sure. I definitely physical activity, mind and body are so like intertwined. I'd read a cool book about having PE as the first period of your school day, and like, it tracked several schools, and one was like experimenting with PE for the first period and like compare it to the others for like middle of the day,
Yeah.
and it's just the grade jump there. It's like,
oh, if you want to,
physical activity wakes up your mind.
if you want to jumpstart your day and feel good for the rest of the day, go run 3 miles in the morning when you first wake up. you get that runner's high, and you will have so much energy throughout the day. But it will alter your life. So if you want to I am 100% on board with arguing about the cost of eating healthy, because I know what the cost of for me was. So we can get those numbers together and draw it out. But even if you take the diet part out of it, 30 minutes a day will change your life if you're not an active person. That will drastically reduce the cost of our healthcare spending. Here's the other thing. Disability. Do you know what the number one cause of disability in the United States is?
No, I don't.
Arthritis. The leading cause of arthritis is health issues or weight issues, because of what it does to your joints and your bones. So if we get people moving, we get them active, we have a healthier society, we're going to have a smarter society, because you think better, you operate better when you're healthy. Someone who is active, your mind is just all in it. You're better off. I promise. You're more productive. You can work longer. You don't get fatigued as much. You're happier. We would have less problem with drugs. We'd have less problem with depression. We'd have less problem with anxiety. We'd have less problem with heart disease. Hell, the only fucking thing we really have to worry about anymore is COVID. And then, guess what? You don't have to fucking worry about dying from COVID either, because it doesn't affect healthy people the same, does it? It all comes around in full circle. We want to pay, going back to what Sarah Renee said about they don't want to make a change. They're right. The cost of ivermectin was like $1 and some change for 100 pills.
What is that?
Ivermectin is the horse dewormer that people, Joe Rogan and them were taking to get over COVID.
Dude, I feel like I'm listening to Joe Rogan right now, man.
So
talking about working out and shit.
Yeah, well, it all plays into everything. But the cost of ivermectin it's like $1 to $2 for 100 pills. See it, John. Thanks for being on the show. But it's like $1 to $2 for 100 pills. The cost of the COVID vaccine averages between $14 and $17 a shot for the government. That's actually going to go up. I read an article recently saying that Pfizer and these other companies could increase the cost of the vaccine once the pandemic is theoretically over. We're getting pandemic pricing and the government's paying for it. The other thing, the government either funded all the research for some of these companies, or in Pfizer's particular case, they didn't fund the research, but they did buy all the doses up front. So once Pfizer developed the vaccine, they said, okay, we're going to give you, $14 billion for 100 million doses or whatever it was, right? So they paid up front. Now, let me ask you this. If you paid for something up front, a set amount, a service, let's say, you're paying for, I don't know, a chef to come cook for you, and you pay $10,000 up front, you're going to expect that chef to be there every single day cooking for you, so you didn't waste that money, right? But if you paid as you went, or you had the chef come and cook and then you paid on the back end for services, and the deal was, certain things cost so much, okay, so if you have a steak this night, it's going to cost so much. If you have a chicken this night, it's going to cost so much, and you add it up, you're actually going to do things that could probably save you money with that chef, so that at the end, you're not going to pay as much. Well, where we're at right now with the COVID vaccine is you have the government that has paid up front for all of these doses, so now they fucking expect you to take the damn vaccine. because it's already paid for. They don't want that money to go to waste. Whereas if they would have said, hey, Pfizer, we'll pay you for all the doses that you give out, we'll pay you at the end of the year. The government wouldn't care at that point who got the vaccine or how many people got it. Because they'll just get whatever the bill is. It could be less than what they paid. So it's a money thing. The government, it's like someone saying, hey, I cooked this dinner for you. You're going to eat it now. There's no profit in health. And that's not an original thought. I actually got that off of the Joe Rogan podcasting. But it is right. There's no profit in health.
A profit in like monetary or?
Yeah, like as far as like the government, and all them, as far as like how these pharmaceutical companies and the government and all that stuff can profit off. Because if people are fat, then they're unhealthy, then there's a need for medication. If people are fat, they're unhealthy, then there's a reason for the government to intervene and be involved.
Yeah, that's a kind of skeptic thing. I would think that a healthier society would be more productive, like you were saying. With
it would
right?
be 100%.
Class,
100%.
sure, and I think that's the thing with wanting people to be healthy. It's like, well, if we all, man, these are tricky topics, man. Yeah, I think there's a lot to gain from having a healthier society. Just, factory production, let's say. GDP would be, a lot higher.
Well, you'd have more people willing to work. Like, they'd just be more active, right? Like, I don't know if you would have happier people. You would have less depression. I guarantee you would have let's say some of these school shootings. There's one this is me speculating, but I'm going off of what I know that exercising does to your body and your brain. Maybe this kid in Oxford High School that just did that school shooting, maybe if he was in a lot better shape and felt better about himself and was healthier, because if you look at him, like it didn't look like he was a very athletic person doing a lot.
Fucking dweeb.
Maybe he wouldn't have been depressed like he is. And I'm not denying that mental health is an issue. Mental health is a huge issue. And not all of it can just be solved, but a lot of it can, and a lot of it can be solved in a very simple way. It comes from confidence. It comes from, again, being active. We are not an animal that can just sit on their ass all day. We have to be doing something. We have to have motivation. We have to have a drive. And it's funny because all this stuff I talk about health-wise and all the problems it comes with, it also feeds into the stuff I was talking about in the beginning of the podcast, going back to the communism stuff and why communism doesn't work. Conceptually, it all comes back around because when you allow people to sit around and be lazy and get out of shape and be fat and unhealthy and rely on the government, they lack motivation, they lack drive, your society fails. Communism fails the exact same way. You take the incentive out of working, you make them rely on the government, and you take ownership away from everything. Everyone's equal. There's no drive, there's no motivation, there's no innovation, and it fails. Your society fails. That's why Russia, or not Russia, but the Soviet Union failed. There's never been a famine in a capitalist country. But there's been hundreds of millions of people die from famine last century alone from communism.
From corruption, a lot of times.
Well, so in a communist society, corruption's going to be there. Even though what's funny is that's ironic because communism is there to try and get rid of corruption. Because it's what communism is saying is that basically in a capitalist society they're saying that the rich are going to take advantage of the poor, right? And be corrupt and greedy and all that stuff. Communism tries to eliminate that. It tries to give the people the power, give the people the means of production. But it doesn't work like that. Because the people, when you give the people the means of production and all that, guess who the people is? The people is the government. They need someone to run it all. So all you're doing is taking out of like my pocket as the private owner or something, and you're giving it to the people, but it's overseen by the government, and the government makes all the decisions on it. And that causes corruption. There's nothing more corrupt than a government that controls fucking everything.
Kleptocracy. You know, you strip the country down for parts and you sell it off, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And these are common themes I talk about on the show. Like, I know I'm repetitive a lot of times on this show, but it's something I feel passionate about, and it's something I just can't wrap my head around. Why these people that want to make these solutions, Medicare for all, we want to help everyone, we want to do this, but they don't want to help. They just want to have a solution to a problem instead of having the solution be to prevent the problem. Like the problem is they want the problems to occur. There are people in the United States, high up people, like in our government, that want us to go to war. It's the military-industrial complex. Bush and Cheney were the worst. You saw what they did. But there are people that want us to go to war. There are people that want people to be oppressed. They want racism to exist. Like Jussie Smollett. He needed racism to exist so he could try and leverage it to get a better paycheck.
That fucking guy. Yeah, what a dweeb, man. That was see-through as soon as it happened, you know? It's like the theatrics.
Well, we went over that in the beginning.
Oh,
yeah.
you did? My bad.
Wild.
All right.
No, you're good. No, I was just saying, like, yeah, it's wild. It's almost unbelievable.
Yeah, dude, as soon as that shit happened too, it was just like he's acting so fucking weird. I know you covered this already, but yeah, what a fucking loser, man.
But going back to the communist deal, we have, and I never can understand this, and this is, let's go back to where I said we should teach PE in school. We should teach economics and finance too from a young age. And the reason being is because then we can teach people how all that shit over there in the US, the Soviet Union and China doesn't fucking work. But instead we're going to, they want to implement critical race theory. And for those of you listening, tomorrow we're going to have a guy that wrote on the podcast that has written a book that's coming out about critical race theory. And I'm sure he knows a lot about this more than I do at least. But critical race theory derives from critical theory, which is out of the Communist Manifesto. If you go on YouTube and look up the lessons they have on it, that they're going to be that people want to teach in our schools, the end result is a critique of capitalism. They don't even, they're going to use racism as the base to it, which is a problem in itself, but then it's really the end goal is to say that the reason behind the racism is capitalism. Not to mention that capitalism has made more black people and brown people and white people and everything rich than anything.
Yeah, it's just as exploitative as, any other country, man. I heard that critical race theory is only really taught in, college.
It is. So, and I've said this before, right now, when you hear about critical race theory on, like, the news and stuff, I believe a lot of that's exaggerated. Fox News is bad about this. Exaggerating it, right? It's not being taught like people say it is. But the problem is that it is being taught in some places. There are a few places that are implementing it. The other problem is that what it is you have places like in California and some of these states that a teacher will walk in and actually want to teach it, and they'll start teaching it, and they're not going to enforce the teaching of it. Right? They're just going to...
how do you mean?
So, like, they're just going to... if a teacher goes in there and wants to start teaching critical race theory, okay. They're not going to say nothing to them about it. It's her own little lesson plan. It's her own class. they're not going to say, no, you can't teach this, which they should not teach it.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? So
I got you.
the door's
There's
just
no, like,
kind of open for,
oversight
yeah.
on-
And so
Got it.
some of these teachers are seeing that, and they're going in and starting to teach it. Now, again, when I talk to this guy tomorrow, I'll ask him about that. But from the reading I've done and what I've seen, that there are teachers that are teaching it. And there's people going around that are teaching teachers what critical race theory is and how to teach it. But the problem is that it all goes back to communism. The way you beat a country, if you can't beat a country by military force, which they're not going to be able to do here in the United States, you have to do it by indoctrinating the people inside of the country, by changing the way that people think. Eric says, or look at Japan, kids that decide at 7 or 8 or 9 years old that they want to be a doctor when they grow up. Japan's education system starts educating them to become doctors starting at 7, 8, and 9 years old, like here in America at 8 years old, or at 8 years in college after high school. So yeah, Eric. Now there is differences obviously in the way that we teach. I don't know if I have much of an opinion as far as whether or not we should change the whole system like that, right? And have people specify, because I think that it's good that we teach kids a bunch of different things and have them be well-rounded, because that helps them find an interest. And when you help people find an interest in things, then that allows them to take it themselves and grow upon it. And then that will drive innovation, right? Like, think about, some of you are older than me, but computers were still kind of a growing thing when I was in middle school. We started doing computer classes, and some kids were interested in it. And now we have, tech right now is just crazy how much of a part of our lives it is. But a lot of those people would have never known that they had an interest in that. So I'm not opposed to having, a whole bunch of different classes and stuff, but there are certain things that we need to teach. There needs to be PE, there needs to be finance, there needs to be economics, because there's other than taxes and death, you can also guarantee that people are going to need to be financially literate, because they're going to deal with money and work and have a job. They're going to need to know economics, because it's a great theory and way to think and learn about how everything works. And you're going to need your health. The most valuable asset you have in life is your health and the ability to earn an income. If you can't earn an income, you can't buy food, you can't buy clothes, you can't buy your necessities, you can't buy a house, you can't afford rent, nothing. Your ability to earn an income is the most valuable asset you have. Because without the ability to earn an income, you can't invest in any other asset. You have to protect that by protecting your health. And you enhance that by expanding your knowledge on certain things, like finance and economics. So, if you want to promote change in the United States, it starts there. Because this doesn't discriminate on whether you're black or white or Mexican. That benefits everyone. Having an understanding in those topics and those subjects benefits everyone. It's not a race thing. There's a few things that I feel very passionate about, and this is one of them. And the whole thing behind the economics and the reason why I don't support Joe Biden or this current administration is because they say stupid ass things like, we're going to build back better from the bottom up and the middle out, and that shit is impossible. Because you can't lift everyone up and make people equal. The only way to make people equal, 100% equal, is by bringing everybody down. Why? Because there's a finite amount of resources. And that's just how it works. So, when they start saying, we're going to tax the rich, we're going to tax this, we're going to tax that, there's and this is just going back to, again, the last episode. I go back and listen. I talked about literally the numbers behind how Trump specifically benefited the average American citizen. By the numbers, what he did. You can't say that for any other president. Oh, okay, I lied. I don't know about the Bush tax cuts. I didn't do the math on that. But you can't, in my lifetime that I've experienced, Obama, Trump, and Biden, Trump is the only one that has physically put money in my pocket by taxing me less. He got rid of healthcare penalties that me as a self-employed person had to pay. He physically benefited me with those tax cuts. And people really want to argue, oh, these tax cuts cost us, they were expensive. They cost us $1 trillion. Who? They cost you, the fucking government, $1 trillion. It didn't cost the private sector one fucking bit. The difference is that when you listen to the news and people think, oh, Trump's tax cuts, it's bad for the country, blah, blah, blah. You're listening to someone that is giving you that reasoning and that basis from the government's point of view. Because Congress has to operate the government like a business, which is fine, but they need to not overstep. The problem is you have the government and you have people in the government now that are operating like a business, but they're trying to fucking profit, and they're trying to increase the profit margins. They're not even trying to keep the status quo. They're trying to increase the profit margins of the private sector, and that's wrong.
Oof.
That is wrong. That the government should not be trying to profit off of its own private citizens. The government is there to provide a security and to implement rules in our markets and our business and our daily lives that create competition in the economy. Like the good example is the antitrust laws. You put in laws that will hinder the ability to become a monopoly and completely control an entire market. That is a good law. That is what the government is there for. Because if you have someone that comes in like an Apple and they control everything, then you take away competition. There's no private businesses that can come up and compete with them. That is what the government's there to do. The government should act as a referee in a game and provide the security to the stadium. The government should not fucking own the teams or the stadium that the team is playing in. Again, they're there to regulate and moderate and protect. Not make a profit. If you want to make a profit, then fucking make a profit from other countries. Don't do it to your own citizens. Don't do it to your own citizens. Why do you want to raise taxes on us instead of going back to these countries in Europe and collecting dividends for fucking liberating their ass during World War II and World War I? Why don't you collect dividends from Japan for coming over here and blowing us up? This is the thing. We never conquer anyone, and that's fine. We are not we have grown to the largest power in the world without ever conquering anything. But the one thing we should have done is make people pay us back for the inconveniences that they caused us. Instead, like NATO is a good example. NATO was created so that all these little countries over in Europe didn't have to, get in a fight with Russia and lose. However, after we get done saving all these countries, instead of going and collecting a freaking check from them for a thank you check, now we're going to pay more than they are proportionally to keep them protected. That doesn't sound very smart. We give up leverage. And I'm kind of just going off the top of my head with this now, but the United States economy, it is in my opinion that the United States economy, without international trade, would take a huge hit. But the world economy, without the United States economy, would completely collapse and obliterate. We could support ourselves. Eric says the quote of the day: "The two enemies of the people are criminals and the government." So let's tie the second down with the chains of the Constitution, so the second will not become the legalized version of the first. They're already the legalized version of the first. You know how we should help Ukraine? We should force Ukraine to allow every citizen in the country the ability to bear arms. And once they do that, they must buy American manufactured firearms.
Jesus, man.
Why not? Think about this. You have the leverage. Ukraine is going to want our help if they go to war with Russia, like a full-out war. They've been at war, but if they go in a full-out war, they're going to come fucking begging on, knocking on our door, asking for help, asking for money. Well, we're not going to send you soldiers. You guys need to fight and protect your own country, but here's what we're going to do. Every citizen needs the ability to defend themselves. You need to get rid of whatever laws you got, not allowing people to purchase firearms and own a gun. And I'm not talking about a fucking rifle or pistol. I'm talking about a fucking AR-15. I'm not talking about machine guns. I'm just talking about AR-15. Something that's, would be decent to defend themselves. And you're going to buy them from an American company that produces them.
Dude. I would think Ukraine could just join NATO, right? And then have a
They've been
little
trying
backing.
to. There's something with that.
Yeah, that's like something Putin definitely does not want.
Yeah, there's something with that whole NATO thing in Ukraine, but they're not a part of it. But I'm just saying, and a lot of these European countries, I wouldn't just do it to them. I'd do it to other ones too. I would say, we're going to completely cut our spending down to below what your guys' average is until you allow your citizens to bear arms. Because it has worked here. Because ain't no one invaded us. I'm just saying. Good luck invading us. That's one thing that we can all agree on. It would take a lot. The only way the United States is going to lose is if it's from within.
Yeah, which is kind of been happening. We have been invaded, maybe not physically, but outside propaganda has definitely got to our citizens,
Well, it's a long-term solution. China has, a 2050 plan, I think it is, or 2049 plan. They have a goal within that, until that year that they're going to become the most powerful country in the world. And they're going to do it.
We think in terms of business quarter, and China thinks of quarter century.
Exactly. They're not doing it for the current population. They're doing it for their heirs, their offspring. And only crazy lady, I think you're saying that they're successful as far as China. They are successful in doing that. Now the people in China aren't successful. China as a country is successful in their whole plan that they're doing, yes, but the people in China aren't successful like people think. In fact, the people in China are very poor. You can't have any kind of private ownership. GDP is about 10,000. GDP per capita is about 10,000. The United States is like 60. There's a big difference. But they think long term. And I don't know of any country in the past that has had that same thought. So it's kind of scary to think about that they're willing to buy into something like that. Because hell, if we thought like that, we would have never put in Social Security. Ever. Half of 8 billion people do not even know what the internet is. Yeah, you're right. It's extremely poor. They use slave labor. They take advantage of North Korean workers. They take advantage of other religions and force them into slave labor. Everything that people complain about is going on in the United States that really isn't. China's doing, but everyone in the United States that is complaining about it is supporting China. It's kind of fucked up, huh?
Yeah, we're all like doing the same thing and then calling each other the evil one, you know.
Well, you have like LeBron, right? Like,
Oh,
supporting China,
I'm a
but
basketball guy.
yeah, you know, like he supports China because makes all that money. Basketball is big over there. He won't criticize them, but at the same time, he's complaining about all the injustices going on over here. Really? Have you not been watching everything going on in China, or for the last, hundreds of years? What's going on in China? So,
Yeah, he might be like an America First type actor, you know.
yeah, I feel like I repeat myself a lot on these episodes, and I know I do. And I try to add something different every day, but when I get on a roll and a rant, this is what it kind of all comes to. Because these are things that I feel like going back to the whole health thing, or teaching kids just basic little things like that, how it could drastically improve our society. And these are things that won't. Making people have PE class is basically free compared to what we're doing. And I don't like using the word free because nothing's free, but I mean, 30 minutes a day. Doesn't cost anything to go walk or run. Eric says, George Carlin had a great monologue on education. I can send you a 5-minute video. Yeah, go ahead and send it. My favorite part is when George Carlin says they don't want a society capable of critical thinking. What they really want is obedient workers. And that is communism, Eric. That is exactly what communism is. You take away freedom of expression, freedom of thought. When you take away those things, you take away innovation. There's a reason why we have so many great inventors from the United States. Because we're allowed to express ourselves. We're allowed to think freely. We're allowed to go and start a business in something that we want to do. We're allowed to go and build shit. We have time to do that. So you start taking away freedom. Like you start censoring people. You're taking away their right to free speech. Now you're going to take away the right to expression. Start taking away religious freedoms. You start doing things that hinder the Second Amendment and the ability for people to stand up against the people that are taking the freedoms away. It is so sad that people they literally think that the Second Amendment's for hunting. And that's the craziest thing to me. Like, it never anywhere in the whole Constitution is hunting granted as a right to you. It's the ability to protect yourself from enemies, foreign and domestic, from an oppressive government, from someone breaking in your house, and defend yourself. Serenade says more people need to listen to old school philosophers and read really old ones too. Aldous Huxley, Brave New World Revisited, George Orwell. I have to check those out, Sarah Renee, because I had not read any of those. Again, sorry, I'm kind of falling behind in the comments. There's a lot, and I'm on a roll. So George Carlin spoke is quite refreshing. Okay.
Yeah, Carlin's the man.
I
think his words kind of get twisted these days, but he would be considered like woke, back
Is
then.
he? And
for sure, man. Do you know Carlin or?
Yeah, I just off the top of my head I can't picture him, but I probably heard him in.
Oh, you've probably seen him in movies and stuff too. He's hilarious, man. He's like a philosopher, honestly, but yeah, definitely pushing the limits.
I want to say something to kind of lighten the mood up a little bit, though. Going back to what you said about how his words get twisted. On the news, you see these clips, and it's like, and again, No one is safe on the show. I will criticize Republicans, Democrats, anyone. No one is safe. And Fox News and all the media people, they're all guilty of this. And they cut up, like an interview or a speech, and they make it sound like someone said something that they didn't say, or they don't put the full quote in right. So I have Tourette's. And the people on Facebook watching probably notice this. But last night I got this random thought saying, well, they probably couldn't edit a video of me talking and make it sound like I said something I didn't say because I twitch too much. You would immediately be able to tell that shit's edited.
Oh, shoot.
Just because my like I have little twitches and stuff like that, like they couldn't chop it up and make it look like it's a flowing thing.
Oh, like a seamless?
Yeah, because as soon as I saw it, I'd be like, no, I don't, and I would notice things, right? You just couldn't do it. So I was like, maybe I can talk a little bit more shit now. Sarah Nay says, yeah, I noticed. So yeah, that's the reason, I'm not nervous or anything. It's just, I have Tourette's, and usually it's not bad, but when I am talking and on a roll and stuff, and I'm not thinking about it and stuff like that, it gets a little bit more worse. But on the bright side, I would challenge anyone to take a video of me and try to make it seem like I didn't say something I didn't say. Because you're not going to be able to. There isn't a video person in the world or technology in this world that I know of that would allow you to do it. Unless you put my voice on someone else's body and made it look like me. I
like
guess
a
I
deep
could.
fake.
Yeah. I guess you could do that, and then have someone like speak, and then like they're saying my words. But that was just to lighten up the mood, with what you said on how the guy's words get twisted.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Carlin definitely, like this dude says he would have been a Trump supporter. I mean, Carlin himself, I don't think he's a cheerleader for any political party. He's just kind of like an observer,
Yeah.
And obviously he wants the best for America, and that's why he says some extreme stuff. But yeah, definitely he's all for education, and that what's this? That's how the media would spin it.
That's how the media would spin it. No, he picks on. Oh, he's saying that he says a lot of crazy things, I think. Whereas you said, I'm trying to think how, I don't know what he really means by that, but
Totally, dude. The media would spin fucking anything to suit their needs.
Here's the thing. The media is a huge problem. We all know this. And I guess you could, here I am talking about politics in a media format, complaining about the media, right? Like, I love when Fox News is like, oh, the mainstream media. Like, you're the mainstream media, right?
Have you caught your reflection lately? For real.
You guys aren't any better. Even though I agree with a lot of the stuff you guys say, you're not any better. You need people like the Joe Rogans and that's why I like the podcasting stuff. That's why I think that a lot of these media people are going to podcasts. I think it's a little more free thinking and talking wise. But someone like Joe Rogan, they keep saying, oh, he's conservative. He's conservative. I think Joe Rogan's more conservative than what Joe Rogan thinks he is. But
yeah, for sure.
But he does keep it neutral, and he's just interviewing people. I think a lot of our perceptions of our Congress and the people in Congress comes from the fact that when they are running for the office, and let's say they have a debate, president in particular, we only give them 2 minutes to talk. The best thing we could do is have a debate format where they sit down, and Joe Rogan he offered this, they didn't want to do it, but I have been saying this even before they offered that. You have a debate format where they had an unlimited amount of time to go in the depth on the questions that are asked to them. Because that way, you're going to either see how smart they are or how much they know about something, or maybe some of these people you don't agree with actually have good ideas. or it's just going to confirm how much of a fucking idiot they really are. Bernie Sanders, when he went on Joe Rogan's podcast, did exactly that. Because he said some shit that was fucking outrageous. But, you know, you give props to someone like Bernie Sanders who was willing to go on, and Tulsi Gabbard goes on, and he's had a few, who's the Asian guy, the universal income
Jackie
guy.
Chan.
No, the universal basic income guy that ran for president.
Yang.
Yang.
Yeah.
He's gone on Joe Rogan's show. You got to give him props for going on there and talking to Joe Rogan over a 2.5-hour podcast and answering questions and elaborating. Joe Biden, even if Joe Rogan wanted to have him on the show, would not go on there and elaborate. All a politician's job is to dodge these questions. How many times have you seen a politician be asked a question and they avoid it, and then they ask and ask and ask again and they still avoid it? Because they know that if they answer that question, that it's going to come back to haunt them. And that's not cool. Because they wouldn't have to do that if they just said their thoughts from the beginning. If you just, like, I have no problem with telling you how I think about something. If someone asks me a question, I'm not going to have a problem answering it. Because you're not going to be able to go back and see that I lied or that, you know, I changed anything. And if I did change one of my thoughts, then I would lay it out and say, I've changed my opinion on this. I think we should also have video. They should, when you run for Congress, you should have a video that you make that is laying out your agenda and your beliefs on all of these topics. And you have to submit that to some kind of central thing and make it available to the public. So when we're in these debates and all that stuff, and you're answering these questions, we can go back and see, well, she wasn't for abortion here, or she wasn't for healthcare here, or something, or he, or whatever, right? But now he's saying he is, or now, because how much different would Joe Biden's way of thinking back in the 90s be to today? It's night and day. Michael J. Steele is pretty honest about the questions he has asked. There are some that are good, that are better than others. Mitch McConnell's a piece of shit, and Lindsey Graham's a piece of shit. It was funny the other day because I saw a video, and it was titled "Lindsey Graham tears into Mitch McConnell over something." So I'm like, okay, let's see. So I open it up.
Those headlines are so bogus.
And it's it's Lindsey Graham saying, you know, I agree almost 100% of the time on Mitch McConnell, and he's a real good friend of mine, but I just don't think this is the right thing to do. That's all he said. I'm like, really? When I think you're tearing into him, like, you're saying, this is bullshit. That's not tearing into anyone. He basically agreed with him.
Yeah, dude.
And Lindsey,
I love those.
Yeah, and Lindsey Graham was like the complete opposite of a Trump supporter when Trump was actually running for office. He did not like him. No, none of those Republicans did. The only one I would say was okay with him, maybe Marco Rubio didn't really hit him that much. And I will back Ted Cruz on it because Ted Cruz was the final person with Trump, you know, trying to win. So I'm not going to fault him for anything, but Ted Cruz was never really critical of Trump outside of the primaries. But all of the other Republicans that were there all criticized Trump when he was running for office the first time. They were all hammering him because they were so scared of what the general population thought, because at that time, before he became the Republican nominee, people didn't know what to think about him. They didn't, you know, they were like, okay, you know, he's kind of opinionated, you know, he says his piece, okay. And the Republican Party were so scared of him. And they didn't really support him until they realized, like, oh shit, our entire party, citizen-wise, likes this guy. Or the majority.
Right?
It shocked them. And then all of a sudden they jump on the bandwagon and start kissing ass. As much as I don't like John McCain, you give him credit, he never really jumped on the bandwagon of Trump.
Really?
Now, John McCain's an asshole. He's a piece of shit, in my opinion, but he never jumped on the Trump
Whoa.
bandwagon. So you got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, Trump is you don't really, what you see is what you get. Not completely, you know. He's just as man, these fucking politicians, dude. I'm no cheerleader on
Yeah.
any side, but I don't know.
Trump knows how to play the game. But we knew that about Trump. We knew he was a negotiator, that he's a business person. And that's why we liked him. Sarah Renee says, media has screwed over everyone because we should not be focused on someone's annoying personality when it comes down to it. Whoever is standing up for our rights is how it should be. You're right, Sarah Renee. It should not matter. They tried getting Trump. Joe Rogan said this, by the way. This is, I see that, Eric. I'm keeping track of time. A while ago, what was the stripper that they said Trump was having an affair with? What was her name? I don't know, but they tried having a lawsuit saying he was having an affair with Stormy Daniels. Yep, damn, Eric's my guy. Stormy Daniels. And they tried, making this whole big deal about how he was screwing Stormy Daniels. It's like, half our presidents have fucking screwed some other woman in office. Do you really think I care about Trump doing it? No. Kennedy was screwing Marilyn Monroe. Bill Clinton was screwing an intern. And then lied about it. I don't think Trump even lied about it. Hell, we know Trump owned those beauty pageants. He was around women all the time. He's been married 3 times. He likes women. We've heard him talk about it. Who cares? That has nothing to do with the way that he will run the country. In fact, I'm more critical of the soft politicians, men in particular, that were trying to say that, I've never said the things, I've never said grab him by the pussy and the stuff that Trump said in private on his own bus. That's not locker room talk. I can't believe he would ever say that. Bullshit.
Yeah, I've never said shit like that, dude.
Because I don't know what kind of locker room you've been in, but I've been in one with grown men.
Yeah.
In a Division I locker room, or even in high school.
Oh, you D1?
Yeah, and the things that were said in those locker rooms were far worse than anything Trump has ever said. I don't know what environment you guys you politicians grew up in, where you think that no one ever talks like that, but you're not with reality here. And that's a problem because, it's ought to be always politically correct. We always got to condemn someone for saying something bad. We got to condemn them for whatever. Something they said 20 years ago. And ruin our lives over it and act like you're an angel. And you're not. Meanwhile,
this stuff wasn't 20 years ago, though, and it is
I'm just
telling
saying,
of a person who, I could shoot somebody, even if he was fucking around, it really speaks volumes of, I'm more powerful than you, and I can do this because you're nobody,
Mm-hmm.
If someone said that to, a family member of mine, I'd be like, oh, wow, that's really fucked up,
What you're saying is, as far as what Trump said on the bus?
Oh, grab him by the pussy or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Why? He didn't say it to any woman. He said it to a friend in his private setting on a bus, talking shit. He didn't say that to anyone else. There was literally him and one other person on the bus that he was talking to, and they had illegally bugged his bus. When they got out of the bus,
conversation like that, and he was completely serious. It sounded like.
What I'm saying is that when he got off of the bus, the first person to greet him was a woman. They went up and treated that woman with respect. He had the guy give her a hug, but they treated her with respect and did not do anything that invaded her, invaded her personal space or anything
Yeah.
like that, right?
Because the cameras were rolling.
But it doesn't
For
matter.
sure. In a private setting, if I said some really fucked up stuff privately and it was recorded, and it's like, oh damn, that's what Dane on Podbean's really like. Like, you might think a little bit different about somebody.
You're right from that perspective. First of all, it's wrong to go in and try and get someone for something they say in private, right? But we have every person that's listening to this podcast, all have said things in private.
Fuck yeah, dude.
that people that would have like, you don't want people to know about. We all have done it. And if you're a woman, you definitely have done it, because we all know women talk shit all the time behind backs. I'm just kidding, guys. But in private, we have all said something that would have been not good for our standing out in society, right? We can all agree on that. So why are we going to get on Trump for saying something in private? Only because the difference is that someone illegally bugged his bus and spied on him? That's the only difference between you and him at that point, is that he got caught for it.
Yeah. It makes me think of that that Durst guy who was he had his mic on and he confessed to killing his wife. And
Now,
they used that as evidence.
that's a little bit different, because he did something out in public that was bad, right? We're not talking about...
For sure. I mean, with Trump being like, there's accusers come forward and say that he sexually harassed, abused certain people, and then...
Yeah, but...
Oh, well, you can't prove it. And then he says, like, oh, I just grabbed him by the pussy, and it's like,
yeah,
dude,
but
right there.
But the difference, like, confessing to killing someone, you're confessing to that specific crime. Whereas Trump saying, yeah, I just grabbed him by the pussy. Well, the times he did that could have been consensual. So therefore it's not, you can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, and a lot of the accusers, I'm not even going to go into having an opinion one side or the other on that. But as far as looking at it from what he said, he didn't necessarily break a crime by even if he acted on what he said, because it could have been consensual. Who knows?
Definitely not. No crime was committed there. It just really, I think it speaks volumes about his character,
Yeah,
and
but
I wouldn't want that man around my family, my
You
daughter.
may not, but you're not around him. You don't deal with him as the president.
Yeah,
How
but
many
he's not
times have you ever
president,
talked to
right?
Trump?
Obviously none.
Yeah, and so what I'm getting at is that there's certain things, right? You're right. It does speak on someone's character, okay? But it doesn't hinder his ability to do that specific job. Just like John Gruden. The private emails come out where he called someone a faggot. He called Roger Goodell a faggot. And he got fired over it. But he treated Carl Nassib. Gruden is the only coach to employ a gay football player, an openly gay football player. Not only employ, but sign him after knowing the fact that he was openly gay. And treating him with respect. The guy loved John Gruden. They didn't have any kind of fallout until the guy found out that John Gruden used faggot in an email referring to Roger Goodell years beforehand.
Yeah, Goodell's awesome. Or Gruden, rather.
Yeah, and so it's the same thing. Because you're right, it would speak to Gruden's character because of all the stuff he said in the emails, but it did not impact the ability for him to do his job. And he treated everyone outside of those emails with respect for the most part. As far in the sense that, he didn't use those words to anyone in the open. So, and I have a problem with Gruden getting fired. So it's all the same thing.
Yeah, pretty disheartening there. I tuned into that Raiders game last No, yeah, Thanksgiving. I was like, damn, where's Gruden? You know, and someone dropped some knowledge on me about that.
Yeah. Oh, so you
Pretty
didn't even
bummed, but
know about it.
no, dude, I'm
Yeah.
kind of out of tune.
You need to go
But
read about that because it's a stupid situation. He should have never been fired. He's got a lawsuit on him now. Eric says,
damn.
who we're supposed to ignore what really happened to Juanita Broderick, Jennifer Flowers, Kathleen Willie, and Paula Jones decades ago, their stories being credible. Monica Lewinsky was celebrated as national treasure. And yeah, you're right, Eric. I mean, and then Crazy Lady says, but you know that when you need a pit bull, use a pit bull, don't use a pussycat. Well, right now we need a pit bull, and we have a pussycat in office. Sarah Renee, I've had boys in high school tell me much worse to my face, so yeah. And yes, Sarah, you're right. I'm not saying
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm not
That's high
saying
school, man,
yeah,
you
and
know?
I'm not saying
This
look,
is
respect everyone. As much shit as I talk on the show, I want to be respectful to everyone. I want to consider the fact that everyone has the right to voice their opinion, no matter what they think, and they can even come on the show and we can talk about it. In fact, next week I may have a guy that's a leftist come and debate. I respect everyone. But don't act like you're better than like Trump or someone that got caught saying something and act like you ain't never said nothing in private that wasn't as bad or if not worse than what they said. Because I guarantee you if we had a freaking fly on Nancy Pelosi's wall, she'd never get out of jail for shit she said. Because now we're getting into shit that they've said in private that has impacted regular Americans. So,
yeah. True. Definitely. I think oof.
grab him by the pussy
Yeah, I
doesn't
don't
sound
know.
as bad now. You know, it's just, I get what you're saying. It's a character thing. But there's character flaws everywhere, especially when it comes to the government.
There's character flaws, and the fact that he's been tangled up in sexual fucking
Hell, I would think,
oh.
okay, now, guys, don't take this in a literal sense. Part of my thing, if you've been on the Facebook page, if you haven't, I suggest you go watch it, because part of my thing is I like to make people laugh and kind of comedic too. All right, I do like to have jokes, but I would make an argument if you're not getting accused of a sexual assault now, you're really not doing it right. You're not pissing enough people off, because it seems like everyone's getting accused of sexual assault these days. Everyone. Okay, look, guys, I don't condone sexual assault ever. It's bad. They should be in jail if they did it. I'm just making a joke, but it does seem like it is common. It does seem like it's common that these people in these positions of power. Now, that could also be that these people in the positions of power are using that power to take advantage of people, and that's bullshit.
It's like fucking Cuomo. Yeah, dude. Same shit.
So Eric says we have 3 minutes to the 2-hour mark, so we're gonna get cut off on Podbeam. So we're actually gonna go ahead and shut this down. Again, go follow me on YouTube, Real Conservative Talk. Go check us out on Rumble. And if you haven't been on the Facebook page, Sarah's watching over on Facebook right now, and she could probably tell you I have some hilarious videos making fun of these people, and so go check those out as well. Again, it's just Real Conservative Talk. But we'll be back on tomorrow, 11 o'clock for the with the author with his book on CRT. So you can tune in on that, or you can watch the video version after the show. So thanks, Shannon, for the compliment. Dane, thanks for calling in. It makes it easier for me to do the show. No, call in whenever, dude. Usually I have a co-host, but he hadn't been able to do it the last 2 or 3 days. So yeah, I mean, feel free to call in whenever. Mics are open, always, all the time. So we'll end it there, and I will talk to you guys later.